Oklahoma Inside Out, a weekly broadcast of Cimarron Alliance that focuses on the issues, culture, and people important to LGBT Oklahomans. And now, here's your host for Oklahoma Inside Out, Scott J. Hamilton.
Hi, and welcome to Oklahoma Inside Out. I can't believe we are only 2 weeks away from Christmas. The weather has been so warm for most of December and then got cold again, and now they're talking warm again. It makes it hard to know what to wear, much less how to plan on things for the next few weeks. But that's what our show is going to help us do today, is to plan on a way of approaching Christmas that will make it less stressful for all of us, more enjoyable, and especially when things can be kind of challenging sometimes as families come together. So I'm really excited about this show. And just want to mention that we have a very special show next week. I'll tell you about that later in this broadcast. And we're winding up the year so quickly. Scotty Arani has promised to come back on Christmas Day to speak with us again about entertaining on New Year's. Big show today that we'll be back for right after we take a look at the news. The big news this week is out of Washington. The Supreme Court will take up California's ban on same-gender marriage, a case that could give the justices the chance to rule on whether or not gay Americans have the same constitutional right to marry as other people. The justices said Friday they will review a federal appeals court ruling that struck down the state's marriage ban, though on narrow grounds. The San Francisco-based appeals court said the state could not take away the same-sex marriage right that had been granted by California's Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of the United States will also decide whether Congress can deprive legally married gay couples of federal benefits otherwise available to married people. A provision of the Federal Defense of Marriage Act limits a range of health and pension benefits as well as favorable tax advantages to heterosexual couples. This is a direct challenge to the DOMA. The cases probably will be argued in March, with decisions expected in late June. While either, both, or neither rulings could have national implications, most advocates in the LGBT community agree that the Supreme Court's decision to hear these cases is a positive step forward toward marriage equality for all Americans. That's news making the headlines this week. For some of us, Christmas is a time when we think about beautiful Christmas trees and chestnuts on an open fire. And for others of us, we think with dread about what it's going to be like coming together with our families on Christmas Day and the challenges that can prevent. And others of us who aren't even sure what we may be doing on Christmas Day. That's why this show is appropriate for all of us, because no matter who we are, no matter what our religious beliefs, this time of year can pose its own stresses. We are really, really fortunate to welcome back to our show a man that has become a good friend of Oklahoma Inside Out. We've had him on twice this year, and both times the response was so good. So it's my privilege to welcome back to Oklahoma Inside Out Dr. Richard Anglin. Richard, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Yeah, you say that just because you don't want to be out shopping today, right? So let's just think about the holidays. And
yes.
As I said a moment ago, they can pose their own kinds of stresses. What general thoughts do you have about Christmas time and coming together or not?
Well, this is an especially challenging time, I think. And I think it is so for everyone, regardless of age, gender, sexual orientation, whatever. The holiday time is a time that can be a whole lot of fun, but it can also be very, very stressful. For some people, very depressing. For other people, they may experience anxiety. There's just a mixture there that comes along with the holidays. Like you said, regardless of your religious beliefs, it's a time when people are celebrating and whatnot, but it poses some very special problems. And if I could just start off with to maybe be of help to someone in the sense of suggesting that we depress ourselves, unless it's biological. We create our anxiety by our thoughts, by what we tell ourselves. Psychologists sometimes talk about self-talk, and I mentioned that one time before when I was on. We have self-talk. You're talking to yourself right now. I don't know what you're saying, but are you saying to yourself something that is negative, something that is scary? Well, if you are, then your body's going to respond, and then you're going to be depressed or you're going to be anxious. And the key may be to realize you're doing this, first of all.
I'm going to interrupt you there for a moment because you've raised something that's really pertinent. I was talking to a friend yesterday who was at a holiday gathering over the weekend, and she said that she was fine and excited to be there. And after about 20 minutes, she just had this anxiety come over her, and she couldn't figure out where it was coming from, couldn't get it to stop. She had to go outside, and she said it was like the whole world was closing in on her. I'm bringing that up to ask, how do we become more in touch with that self-talk? How do we catch ourselves perhaps before we get to that point?
Very, very good question. As you begin to feel different, as you experience something that was different from what you started the party with, I would just ask myself, what am I doing here? What am I doing with my thoughts? Am I thinking something negative, or is this a bit unconscious? Have I been in this situation before? And it reminds me of something that I went through, and I got into this downward spiral of telling myself maybe a depressive story, maybe an anxious story. In this case, it was anxiety. Sometimes when people are in circumstances that trigger old memories, they may not immediately realize that until after the fact. So this person you were talking about, she might want it to ask herself as she stepped out to take a break, what kind of thoughts am I having? Where did these thoughts come from? Is this an old habit? If it is, then I'm going to just, the English have an expression, muddle through. I'm just going to muddle through now because it's an old habit, and I'll just do it. I don't think you can just turn on a dime and change things, but I think you can make a situation worse, or you can make it better.
And I love the whole idea of giving yourself permission to just muddle through.
Oh, sure.
And that,
sure. Be kind to yourself.
At least you know you're going to get to the other side.
Be kind to yourself. And in the holiday time, you're supposed to be up and enjoying, and
we'll be back right after this break.
My name is Kelly Caliente Forbes, your Mr. Gay Oklahoma US of A 2011. I'm a member of Cimarron Alliance, and it's a very, very good investment, and I encourage you to also join. It's only $25 a year. Go ahead and visit on www.cimarronalliance.org. Once again, Kelly Caliente Forbes, and don't forget, together we're better.
For 44 years, the Oklahoma Observer has been concerned about Oklahoma families. Traditional families, blended families, families with LGBT children, and LGBT families who have children. We believe strongly that no individual or family in our state should be marginalized, especially not by politicians. That's why we hold lawmakers accountable to every family in Oklahoma, and that includes your family. We just bet you will find our in-depth reporting, critical analysis, and no-holds-barred style a refreshing change of pace from the state's mainstream media. It's our job to report on news that matters to you. I hope that you will visit us today at www.okobserver.net to see for yourself how much we value you, your concerns, and your dreams for the future of Oklahoma. That's www.okobserver.net.
Welcome back to Oklahoma Inside Out. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, and our guest is Dr. Richard Anglin. Richard, I guess during the break, it just hit me that in talking to you, I don't feel like I'm going through therapy. You know what?
Yeah.
Instead, I feel like I'm getting some tools here.
Good.
And
Good.
that's.
I hope someone listening can benefit from what we're talking
and so
about. That's the whole point.
Exactly. And I want to go back to where we started this conversation and just look kind of generally. Are there other things that could apply to all of us as we ramp up into this season?
Well, when we went to break, I just mentioned briefly, this is a time when you are supposed to be up. You're supposed to be feeling good. You watch a movie on television, or you listen to songs this time of year, and oh, what a joyful time, and all. And maybe because of your circumstances, you're not feeling a whole lot of joy, or you think you're supposed to be at one level of enjoyment, and well, while you're okay, you're just not quite there, and you think, well, there's something missing.
Everybody else is there.
Yeah, supposed to be.
Yeah.
Well, the truth is that people go through ups and downs, and again, you got to be kind to yourself and say, I'm going to have reasonable expectations. I'm not going to be a Grinch and say, okay, I'm not going to enjoy this. Therefore I won't be disappointed. See, that's not a good idea.
You're cheating yourself at that point.
Yeah,
aren't
you're
you?
cheating yourself of what could be a great time. Just go with, regardless of what you're doing. Not a whole lot of expectations of, I must be at a certain point. I must feel good. I must be just really happy. Just go with, I'm going to give myself a chance to have a good time. And if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. And I'm not going to beat myself up if it doesn't work that way. And not wonder what's wrong with my life and all these big issues. And sometimes people just start doing what I call a laundry list. This went wrong, that went wrong, blah, 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 blah. And before long, you can just really talk yourself into a corner.
We're talking about things that are internal right now.
Yes, I'm dealing internally, yeah.
But last week, I watched Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for the first time in several years, and I got to thinking about that program and Charlie Brown and Frosty the Snowman. In all of those happy shows, there is a real melancholy that plays as an undertone there. And so I'm talking television, but other people, clearly we were interacting with a lot of people this month.
That's right.
And how, as long as we're in our own heads, protecting ourselves as best we can, but what about the expectations we have of other people?
Well, no doubt other people do influence us. As you pointed out, the television program influenced you. Music. You turn on the car radio and they're playing some old Christmas song or whatnot that brings back some memories, maybe good or bad. Those external things will affect you. There's no question about that. But then you have within you the ability to make it better or to make it worse. For goodness sake, if you're watching a show that makes you feel down, change the channel. Or if you've got music on that's not good, why find something upbeat. Or just go with the flow and say, okay, well, that's kind of bringing back some kind of sad memories, and hadn't thought about that, but life goes on, and I can make it better tomorrow. That's in regard to depression. Now, anxiety is another thing. Anxiety is a vague generalized fear. So ask yourself, what am I fearful of? What is it that I'm fearing? And sometimes you have to be brutally honest and just say that I am not living up to my expectations or others, or and you cannot put your life or happiness in the hands of other people or in what's occurring around you, because there's no way to really control that, and we have very little impact on that. Sometimes we can influence, but we can't control it.
And when we give that remote control to our emotions to someone else, it's all out of our control.
Oh, yeah. So you just say, okay, well, there are things around me. I probably will be impacted, but then I can do something about that. I can make it worse. I can make it better. I can muddle through.
I want to look specifically at the influences that come from our families at Christmas time, and we'll do that right after we take this break.
Hi, I'm Lorette Taylor, past chair of Cimarron Alliance. I joined the board because I believe in the vision and the work of this organization. We're working every day listening to the concerns of our community and helping to address those very concerns. I hope you will consider supporting Cimarron with a gift. Even $10 a month will help. Working together, we really can achieve equality for all gay Oklahomans. Please visit www.cimarronalliance.org and make your gift today.
The election is over, and many Oklahomans are breathing a sigh of relief. But what will the real impact of a continued Obama administration mean to the citizens of Oklahoma? And how will this impact the work of lawmakers in our own state capital? And what does all of this mean for progressive thinkers right here at home? For over 44 years, the Oklahoma Observer has been providing answers to some very difficult questions. It's the one place you can go for news, commentary, and analysis that is simply not available anywhere else. That's why the Oklahoma Observer is such an important publication to LGBT Oklahomans and their allies. We keep you informed about issues important to your family. So visit us today at www.okobserver.net. Our only agenda is to provide critical news for critical thinkers.
Welcome back to Oklahoma Inside Out. I just want to say a word about the commercial that you just heard from the Oklahoma Observer. Great, great people at the Observer. They do so much in letting the world know that Oklahoma is not all conservative. And they really take a balanced approach when they look hard at issues here in Oklahoma. And it would make a great Christmas gift to offer a gift subscription to someone. So do visit their website. We're talking today with Dr. Richard Anglin, and just before the break, Richard, we were talking about those external forces that can impact us, and you told us how we can kind of gird ourselves for that. There's something that happens that can happen anyway, no matter where we are in life. When we are around our parents, we revert to that parent-child thing. I mean, I know that I do that, and I have a great relationship with my mom and dad, but we're not friends. They are my parents. If it weren't so good, then it would be very, very challenging to come to sit at the Christmas table, especially if they didn't recognize my relationship, or if they had not come to terms with my sexual orientation. So let's look a moment at that family dynamic, and how do we not just muddle through that, but really protect ourselves all the way through it.
Well, I think there are those who are very fortunate that have very good relationships with their family, but many people do not. And I think you have to be honest with yourself, not pretend that it's different before you ever get there, before you ever get into that circumstance. If you're going to be with your family, then you say to yourself, I know that there are certain pitfalls, and I'm just going to step around that hole. I want to enjoy them as best I can, and take it for what it's worth and go with that, rather than this is how it should be. Or, I would say to you, don't get into the bad habit of saying it should be, but it's not, because that'll just add to your stress.
So if we've always been a part of the Addams family or the Manson family, why do we think that on Christmas Day it's going to be the Brady Bunch?
Right. So you just say, well, this is the way my family is, and I'm not going to expect everything to be different. I'm just going to step around the holes best I can and go on and enjoy what I can. Another issue, though, I think, for gay people would be that they don't have family, at least blood relatives.
Exactly.
Either nearby or that they still communicate with or what have you. I think that it's important to keep in mind that you have the blood family, but you also have your chosen family,
sure,
your friends. And if you don't have part of your genetic tree that you're going to get together with or interact with, be sure to connect with your chosen family, your friends, and the people that you enjoy, and if you can. Being alone at Christmas time is okay. You could do that. You could be your family. You could treat yourself as your very good family.
I think you have to really prepare for that, though.
But you would have to prepare for that.
As you were saying that, I was thinking about one Thanksgiving when my first Thanksgiving in New York. I hadn't been there too long, and I had Thanksgiving dinner at a diner, and the food was absolutely not what I was not used to oyster stuffing. I'm a cornbread dressing kind of guy. And it was an extremely lonely time because I hadn't prepared for it at all.
I'm sure. If you prepare ahead, that can help. There's certainly a difference between aloneness versus lonely. And just because you are alone doesn't automatically mean that you are lonely. And if you've thought ahead, then you don't just automatically have to be lonely. I would just suggest, though, if you possibly can, to get together with at least one other person that you enjoy their company. Whether this is a blood relative or whether it's a chosen family member in a way.
Absolutely.
A friend that you feel close enough that that could happen. Because it is a time for sharing and it is a time for interacting. But if you are one of those people who finds his or herself alone, it's not the end of the world. It is a time when maybe if you let yourself go down that road, you could be very lonely. But if you let yourself go down a different road, you could say, okay, I'm alone, but I'm going to find ways to really please myself today. I don't have to answer anybody. I can please myself.
And that is a great way to end this broadcast. Richard Anglin, thank you for being with us today. Come back and see us soon.
Pleasure, I will.
I invite you also to listen to next week's show. It's a monologue, our most listened to show from last year. We are making an exception and repeating that broadcast. It's for anyone who may be having a hard time hanging on through the holidays. I hope that you'll listen to that show as well. Always a pleasure to have you with us. Please tell your friends that we're here every single week on Oklahoma Inside Out. Our producer is Chris Moyer, Cimarron Alliance Board co-chairs Jeremy Hood and Randall Marsh. Our announcer is Lisa Pizzeri. From all of us at Oklahoma Inside Out and Cimarron Alliance, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you for joining us. Until next time, hang on to the vision of a fair and just Oklahoma.
Oklahoma Inside Out is a production of Cimarron Alliance, Central Oklahoma's preeminent LGBT advocacy and education organization. If you have a topic you would like to hear discussed or a person who you would like to hear interviewed, please call 405-495-9300 or email oklahomainsideout@cimarronalliance.org. Please feel free to share the link to this broadcast with your friends.